Custer thinks he's won the moment he sees the village. Within an hour, his command is wiped out. This was not a close fight. It was a total disaster. Here's exactly why. In July 1863, at the Battle of Gettysburg, George Armstrong Custer led a headlong cavalry charge that shattered an advancing Confederate column. This highly aggressive tactical style defined his entire Civil War career. Under General Philip Sheridan, Custer fought through the Shenandoah Valley, commanded division-level assaults at Cedar Creek, and helped block the Confederate retreat at Appomattox. These actions earned him a promotion to brevet major general before his 25th birthday, cementing his public image as a fearless, fast-moving commander who could win against superior numbers. In 1866, Custer accepted a regular Army commission as lieutenant colonel of the newly created 7th Cavalry, carrying his wartime tactics directly to the plains. His superiors actively enabled this independent style. Sheridan, now a powerful military patron, repeatedly protected Custer and ensured he commanded the primary strike force for the 1876 expedition. General Alfred Terry, the overall campaign commander, granted Custer wide latitude, authorizing him to depart from written orders if he saw sufficient reason to do so. This institutional trust reinforced Custer's belief that rapid offensive action could solve any battlefield problem. In the Civil War, striking first had repeatedly brought victory. However, this success created a dangerous blind spot. Custer operated under the assumption that aggressive momentum could overcome a lack of scouting data and battlefield uncertainty. He believed his opponents would flee rather than stand and fight. On the plains, against a massive, unified coalition, this reliance on speed and raw confidence would lead him to isolate his command, with no way to escape. At dawn on June 25, 1876, the Crow and Arikara scouts climbing the high ridge known as the Crow's Nest saw signs of a colossal gathering. Below them, a massive pony herd moved across the valley floor, beneath a rising blanket of smoke from hundreds of morning fires. The scouts, operating as experienced military observers, recognized the sheer scale of the encampment. Later accounts attribute a stark warning to the interpreter Mitch Bouillet, who reportedly told Custer it was the largest village he had ever seen. Sworn testimony from the 1879 inquiry also recorded Crow Corporal Half Yellowface warning Custer, "You and I are both going home tonight by a road we do not know." This intelligence directly contradicted Custer's official military estimates. While the War Department expected a hostile force of 500 to 800 warriors, modern National Park Service demographic studies indicate the encampment actually held between 7,000 and 8,000 people, including 1,500 to 1,800 active warriors living in approximately 1,000 lodges. Custer failed to distinguish between a camp's total population and its active combatants, and he misjudged their willingness to fight. Operating under the assumption that Plains Indians would automatically flee when faced with a sudden cavalry charge, he treated this unprecedented gathering as an ordinary target. He discounted the qualitative intelligence from his scouts, choosing instead to prioritize speed and prevent a retreat that was never going to happen. This strategic blind spot turned his reconnaissance mission into a direct assault against an overwhelmingly superior, highly motivated force. At 9:30 in the morning on June 25th, before establishing the true strength of the encampment, Custer divided the 7th Cavalry into 3 separate battalions. He ordered Major Marcus Reno to lead the initial attack toward the village. Captain Frederick Benteen was sent to scout the southern ridges, while the slow-moving pack train lagged further behind. Custer kept a 3rd force under his personal command to advance along the bluffs. This decision violated the core military concept of mutual support, the ability of separated units to reinforce or protect one another. The entire operation assumed these divided groups could quickly reunite over rugged, unfamiliar ground, yet the written orders contained no backup plan to restore contact. This fragmentation left Reno and Benteen as separated, dependent commands, rather than active partners in a unified plan. Major Marcus Reno's battalion crossed the river and rode down the valley, launching the opening attack against the southern edge of the encampment. As hundreds of Lakota and Cheyenne warriors mounted a swift countercharge, Reno ordered his troopers to dismount and form a skirmish line near the timber. The position quickly deteriorated under heavy fire. Outflanked and suffering rising casualties, Reno was compelled to fall back, leading a chaotic retreat across the river. The survivors regrouped and established a defensive perimeter on Reno Hill. While this withdrawal saved the remnants of the battalion, the river and the steep bluffs completely removed Reno's force from the battle. The first phase of Custer's plan had failed, leaving his own northern column isolated and without offensive support. As Reno's retreat began, Custer continued pushing northward toward the village. Battlefield reconstructions place his route near the Crow's Nest and Weir Point, though his exact path remains disputed. Custer faced a critical choice: wait to consolidate his divided forces, bringing separated battalions together before committing to a larger engagement, or press the attack alone. He chose to advance. To summon reinforcement, he dispatched his orderly, Giovanni Martini, with a scribbled message for Captain Benteen. "Benteen, come on, big village, be quick, bring packs." But this urgent note never reached Benteen in time, and no reliable communication reconnected Custer with Reno's battered command. By prioritizing continued movement over consolidation, Custer turned a risky, fragmented plan into a detached, isolated advance, marching his 210 men directly into the path of an overwhelming native concentration. The Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho gathered in the valley were defending their families, communities, and a contested homeland. Decades of tension had intensified after the 1874 Black Hills gold discovery, when the federal government openly violated the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty to force these sovereign bands onto reservations. This massive encampment was a traditional seasonal gathering, already united and highly organized before the first cavalry horse crossed the river. When the attack began, the response was decentralized and immediate. Highly mobile warriors navigated the ravines on horseback, guided by lifelong terrain knowledge, kinship ties, and active warrior societies. Sitting Bull provided the spiritual and moral authority that galvanized the defense, while tactical leaders like Crazy Horse, Gall, and Two Moons directed localized counterattacks. Operating without a rigid military hierarchy, individual bands exercised local initiative, shifting from a peaceful domestic camp into a coordinated defensive network within minutes. The trap snapped shut in less than 2 hours. Surrounded on Battle Ridge, Custer's 5 isolated companies lost all room to maneuver as Lakota and Cheyenne warriors pressed the attack from every ravine. 4 miles away, Major Reno's shattered force and Captain Benteen's reserve merged on the bluffs, pinned down under heavy fire and entirely cut off from the northern column. No soldier in Custer's immediate command of 210 men survived to provide a first-hand account. Instead, the ground itself holds the only reliable record. Modern archaeological surveys mapping thousands of spent Springfield cartridge cases and bullet impacts reveal a chaotic, rapid collapse, contrasting with early myths of an orderly defense. While some cavalrymen struggled with jammed carbines, the sheer speed of the onslaught was the decisive factor. The total absence of pack-train ammunition on Battle Ridge proves that Custer's desperate summons for reinforcements never arrived. In a fierce, close-quarters melee lasting under an hour, the isolated battalion was completely destroyed. The disaster at the Little Bighorn was the logical endpoint of compounding tactical decisions. The military's offensive doctrine made rapid momentum look like the ultimate answer to uncertainty, which led directly to the decisive intelligence failure, interpreting the scouts' warnings through the false expectation of a small, retreating target. Splitting the regiment then created extreme dispersion before mutual reinforcement could be guaranteed. When Major Reno withdrew, the southern support link broke completely. Instead of halting to consolidate his forces, Custer pushed forward, converting a detached advance into total, permanent isolation. The massive Lakota and Cheyenne coalition exploited this timing gap through rapid, decentralized mobilization. While the ultimate destruction of the 5 companies was not predetermined when the morning began, the tactical choices made throughout the day left the regiment with no margin for error. Once the engagement began under these self-imposed conditions, the command lost all room to maneuver, leaving no realistic path to recovery or survival. The disaster at Little Bighorn was no heroic tragedy. It was the inevitable cost of arrogance. Today, this defeat remains a warning of what happens when ego dictates strategy and reality is ignored. In any conflict, myth is no match for preparation. Share your thoughts in the comments.